Chronic Stress and Brain Health, a self-help guide. Chronic stress isn't just a fleeting emotional burden. It triggers tangible, physical changes in your brain and body that can ripple into every aspect of your life. High levels of prolonged stress are linked to mental health challenges like anxiety and depression, and they elevate the risk of serious physical conditions such as heart disease and stroke. The good news? By understanding how chronic stress affects you and taking proactive steps, you can protect your brain health and reclaim your well-being. This guide explores the science behind stress's impact on your mind, breaks down its symptoms and causes, and offers practical evidence-based strategies from lifestyle tweaks to mindfulness practices to help you manage it. The tone is supportive and straightforward, crafted for anyone feeling overwhelmed but ready to take charge through knowledge and action. 1. Neurological and cognitive symptoms of chronic stress. Chronic stress doesn't just weigh on your emotions. It alters how your brain functions, leading to a range of mental and neurological symptoms. Over time, you might notice shifts in your thinking, mood, and even physical sensations. Here's a detailed look at the most common brain-related effects. Memory problems and brain fog. Ever forget where you parked your car or blank on a coworker's name during a stressful week? Chronic stress often brings memory lapses and a hazy mental state known as brain fog. This happens because stress hormones like cortisol flood the brain, overstimulating areas like the hippocampus, which handles memory formation and retrieval. Studies show that prolonged stress, whether from overwork, sleep loss, or emotional strain, impairs short-term memory and focus. You might struggle to learn new skills, misplace everyday items, or feel like your thoughts are stuck in molasses. For example, a student cramming for exams might find that despite hours of study, they can't recall key facts during the test. A classic sign of stress overloading cognitive capacity. These moments aren't a sign of weakness. They're your brain signaling it's under pressure. Anxiety and mood changes. Chronic stress is a notorious fuel for anxiety, leaving you with persistent worry, restlessness, or a sense of dread. You might feel jittery, have racing thoughts, or snap at loved ones over small things. This stems from the brain's amygdala, its fear and emotion hub, becoming hypersensitive under prolonged stress. Research shows that chronic cortisol exposure amps up the amygdala's activity, making you more prone to overreact to minor triggers, like a delayed email response feeling like a crisis. Mood swings are common too. Irritability 1 minute, exhaustion the next. Over time, this can spiral into depression. The brain's mood-regulating systems, like serotonin pathways, get worn out, leaving you feeling hopeless or detached. Imagine a parent juggling work and kids, snapping at their spouse over a spilled drink. That's chronic stress amplifying emotional responses. Reduced neuroplasticity and creativity. Your brain's ability to adapt and grow, called neuroplasticity, takes a hit under chronic stress. Normally, the hippocampus churns out new neurons and connections, helping you learn a language or brainstorm a project. But sustained stress slashes levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a key growth molecule, and slows neurogenesis. The result? You might feel mentally stuck, uninspired, or fatigued when tackling new challenges. A graphic designer under deadline pressure, for instance, might stare blankly at their screen, unable to muster fresh ideas, not because they're untalented, but because stress has dulled their brain's creative edge. This rigidity can also sap motivation, making even small tasks feel daunting. Executive dysfunction, mental fatigue. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's command center for planning and self-control, falters under chronic stress. You might procrastinate on decisions like choosing a meal off a menu, struggle to organize your day, or act impulsively, say stress eating a whole bag of chips. Studies link this to stress-shrinking dendrites, the neuron branches that help the prefrontal cortex communicate. Picture an overworked manager unable to prioritize tasks, leaving emails unanswered while scrolling social media. That's executive dysfunction in action. This mental fatigue can make routines feel chaotic and erode your confidence in handling life's demands. Physical neurological symptoms. Stress doesn't just stay in your head, it shows up in your body too. Tension headaches, tight shoulders, or even dizzy spells can signal a nervous system on overdrive. Sleep often suffers. You might lie awake with a racing mind or wake up unrefreshed as the brain struggles to downshift from fight or flight. Poor sleep then worsens memory and mood, creating a vicious cycle. For some, chronic stress amplifies existing issues like migraines or tremors. Take a caregiver staying up nights with a sick relative. Their headaches and fatigue aren't imaginary. They're the brain and body crying out for relief. Recognizing these symptoms is a powerful first step. They're not flaws or failures. They're biological responses to a brain under siege. If you've noticed brain fog, anxiety, or exhaustion creeping in, know that these are common and reversible with the right tools, which we'll explore later. 2. What chronic stress does to the brain over time. Chronic stress isn't a passing storm. It can reshape your brain's structure and wiring. Here's a deeper dive into how prolonged stress affects key regions and why these changes matter. Hippocampus, memory center, shrinkage. A seahorse-shaped region deep in your brain is vital for memory and learning. Chronic stress bombards it with cortisol and glutamate, which can prune neuron connections and even shrink its volume. Animal studies show stressed rats lose hippocampal neurons, while human MRI scans reveal smaller hippocampi in people with long-term stress or PTSD. This translates to real-life struggles, forgetting appointments, losing track of conversations, or blanking on familiar routes. Stress also curbs neurogenesis here, stunting the brain's ability to refresh itself. A teacher under relentless pressure might find they can't recall lesson plans they've taught for years, a sign of hippocampal strain. Overactive amygdala, fear and emotion center. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, thrives on stress, a little too much. Chronic exposure to stress hormones makes it hyperactive, growing extra connections that keep you primed for fear. This can turn a loud noise into a panic trigger or a minor disagreement into a meltdown. Research is mixed on whether it physically enlarges, but the consensus is clear: its sensitivity spikes. A soldier with combat stress might jump at a car, backfiring years later, their amygdala stuck in high gear. This overactivity fuels anxiety and emotional volatility, making calm feel elusive. Prefrontal cortex weakening. Sitting behind your forehead, the prefrontal cortex, PFC, governs logic, planning, and impulse control. Chronic stress shrinks its dendrites and dampens its activity, leaving you foggy and reactive. Studies of stressed lab animals show shriveled PFC neurons mirrored in humans with burnout or depression. This explains why a stressed parent might yell instead of reasoning with a tantruming child. The PFC's offline, letting the amygdala take the wheel. Over time, this weakens your ability to strategize or stay cool under pressure. The silver lining? Recovery is possible with stress relief. Neurochemical imbalances. Stress throws your brain's chemistry out of whack. Cortisol stays high, potentially aging neurons prematurely and raising dementia risks. Serotonin and dopamine, mood and reward chemicals, dip, leading to joylessness or apathy. Chronic inflammation creeps in too, as stress activates immune responses that erode neural health over years. Low BDNF and synaptic loss further sap connectivity. Imagine a once vibrant artist losing their spark, that's stress draining the brain's vitality. Connectivity and plasticity changes. Stress rewires how brain regions talk. An overactive amygdala drowns out the hippocampus and PFC, creating an emotional hair trigger state. Dr. Bruce McEwen's concept of allostatic load captures this. The cumulative toll of stress wears down your brain's resilience. Left unchecked, it can seed long-term issues like anxiety disorders or memory decline. But here's hope. Studies show that reducing stress can regrow hippocampal neurons and restore PFC function, especially with support like exercise or therapy. These changes aren't set in stone. Understanding them empowers you to act. Your brain's plasticity means healing is within reach, as we'll see in the strategies ahead. 3. Common causes of chronic stress. Chronic stress often has clear roots. Life pressures that keep your stress response simmering. Identifying yours is key to tackling it. Here's a closer look at the top culprits. Workplace burnout and overload. Jobs are a stress hotspot. Long hours, tight deadlines, or toxic bosses can trap you in a cortisol loop. Burnout, exhaustion, cynicism, and inefficiency hits when work never lets up. A 2023 survey found 77% of U.S. workers stressed by their jobs, often from understaffing or micromanagement. A nurse pulling doubles might dread shifts they once loved. That's burnout creeping in. Unresolved trauma and PTSD, past wounds, abuse, accidents, or loss can linger as chronic stress. PTSD keeps the brain in survival mode, replaying danger signals. A car crash survivor might tense up driving years later, their body still braced for impact. Childhood toxic stress from neglect can wire the brain for lifelong vigilance. Healing often needs professional guidance, but self-care helps too. Ongoing financial strain, money woes, debt, rent hikes, or no savings gnaw at peace. A 2023 poll showed 77% of Americans aged 35 to 44 stressed about finances. A single parent scraping by might lose sleep over bills, their brain taxed by constant what-ifs. This bandwidth tax clouds decisions, piling on stress. Chronic illness or caregiving, ailing health, say diabetes or chronic pain, doubles stress with physical and emotional strain. Caregiving, like tending a spouse with Alzheimer's, adds relentless duty. A daughter feeding her mom daily might skip her own rest, burning out fast. Both scenarios keep stress hormones flowing. Relationship and social stress. Toxic partnerships, family feuds, or isolation spark chronic stress. A spouse in a shouting match nightly can't unwind, while a bullied teen feels dread daily. Discrimination, racism, sexism compounds this, triggering stress with every slight. Social disconnection, like an empty inbox, amplifies other pressures. Stress often stacks up, job loss plus a sick kid, for example. Pinpointing your triggers, a demanding job, a strained marriage, lets you target solutions from boundary setting to seeking support. 4. How common is chronic stress? Global and U.S. statistics. You're not alone in this. Chronic stress is a global giant, and stats prove it. Global prevalence. A 2022 survey across 34 countries found 62% of people regularly stressed, with 30% often overwhelmed. Gallup's 2020 data pegged a stress surge at 190 million more people worldwide, thanks to COVID-19. Youth in developing nations report peak levels, but stress spares no one. United States, the APA's Stress in America polls show 75% of adults hit by stress symptoms monthly. Headaches, fatigue, frayed nerves. Half say it disrupts life. 56% struggled to function in 2023. Money, 77% in work, 65% lead the pack. Teens feel it too, drowning in school stress. Health toll. Stress costs the U.S. $300 billion yearly in healthcare and lost work. It's a stealth driver of heart disease, weakened immunity, and mental illness. The WHO calls it a 21st century health crisis, a silent epidemic beneath bigger headlines. Post-pandemic lens, stress soared in 2020-2021 with lockdowns and loss, easing slightly by 2023, but still above pre-2019 norms. Politics, inequality, and climate fears keep it simmering. Globally, economic and conflict stress lingers. These numbers scream urgency, but also solidarity. Managing your stress isn't just self-care, it's a health revolution.